Tuan Signs an elderly person is ready to live alone. A personal perspective. You value peace and quiet more than ever. Peace and quiet. I remember, well, when my grandkids used to visit every Sunday, I loved seeing them, of course, but I must confess, I was exhausted by all that commotion. The laughter, the games, the shouts of joy, it was wonderful. But at the end of the day, I felt an immense relief when the house returned to silence. As the years went by, I realized that I began to crave these moments of calm more and more. The noise of the TV on all day, loud phone conversations, even the sound of the washing machine started to bother me. Sometimes I caught myself sighing contentedly when I was alone in the house, savoring the silence as if it were a symphony. If you identify with this, it might be a sign that you're ready to live alone. There's nothing wrong with wanting peace. In fact, many of us as we age discover that silence is a true treasure. Living alone allows you to control the noise level in your home, creating a tranquil environment that nurtures your soul and reinvigorates your spirit. You enjoy your own company. There was a time when I feared loneliness. I thought I always needed to be surrounded by people to feel happy. But over time, something curious happened. I began to like my own company. I discovered the pleasure of sitting on the porch with a good book, with no one to interrupt my reading. I learned to appreciate a quiet breakfast, savoring each bite while watching the sunrise. Even household chores became moments of reflection and personal satisfaction. If you find that you're comfortable with yourself, that you don't need the constant noise of other people to feel good, this can be a clear sign that you're ready to live alone. It's not about isolating yourself from the world, but recognizing that your own company is valuable and rewarding. 3. You set strong boundaries and prioritize your well-being. With age, I learned a valuable lesson. Saying no isn't selfish, it's self-care. I remember when I always said yes to everything and everyone. I looked after the grandkids even when I was exhausted, accepted invitations to events that didn't interest me just to please others, let people invade my space and time without question. But there came a time when I realized this was affecting my health and happiness. I started setting boundaries. I told my daughter I could only watch the grandkids twice a week, not every day. I began to decline invitations to events that made me anxious or uncomfortable. I learned to tell visitors I needed to rest when I felt tired. If you find yourself doing something similar, prioritizing your well-being and setting clear boundaries, it may be a sign that you're ready to live alone. Living alone allows you to create an environment where your boundaries are naturally respected, where your well-being comes first without you constantly having to justify your needs to others. 4. You desire more control over your space and time. The luxury of controlling your own space and time. I remember when I shared the house with my wife, God rest her soul. I loved her deeply, but sometimes we irritated each other with our preferences. She liked to sleep with the TV on. I preferred total silence. I liked to have dinner early. She preferred to eat later. After her passing, amidst the sadness, I discovered an unexpected freedom. I could arrange the furniture the way I wanted, decorate the walls with the photos I chose, eat when and what I desired. I realized that having control over my space and my time was incredibly liberating. If you find yourself dreaming of a house where everything is exactly the way you like it, where you can set your own schedules without negotiating with anyone, this might be a strong indication that you're ready to live alone. It's wonderful to be able to decide when to clean, when to rest, when to receive visitors, all according to your own needs and desires. 5. You've overcome the need to care for others full-time. A large part of my life was dedicated to caring for others. First, it was my children. Then, my elderly parents who needed assistance. For a while, I even helped care for my grandchildren. It was rewarding, no doubt, but also exhausting. There came a time when I realized I had given so much of myself to others that I had almost forgotten about myself. I felt it was time to rediscover myself, to take care of myself. That's when I started seriously thinking about living alone. If you feel you've fulfilled your role as a caregiver and now yearn for time for yourself, to rediscover your interests and take care of your own well-being, This can be an important sign. Living alone offers the opportunity to focus on yourself, without the constant responsibility of caring for other people. 6. You want to age on your own terms. Aging is a natural process, but how we deal with it can vary greatly from person to person. Personally, I always feared becoming a burden to my family. The idea that my children would have to adapt their lives to take care of me made me anxious. That's when I decided I wanted to age on my own terms. I wanted to maintain my independence for as long as possible. I started researching assistive technologies, home adaptations that could help me live independently for longer. If you identify with this desire to maintain control over your life as you age, to make your own decisions about care and assistance, living alone can be an excellent option. This doesn't mean isolating yourself from family, but rather having the freedom to decide when and how to accept help. 7. You're ready for a new beginning. After years of living the same routine, taking care of family, working the same job, there came a time when I felt I needed a change. It was as if an inner voice was telling me, it's time for a new beginning. I decided I wanted to explore new interests, meet new people, maybe even move to a different city. The idea of starting over, of creating a new life for myself, was both scary and exciting. If you feel this impulse for change, this desire to turn the page and start a new chapter in your life, living alone might be the ideal path. It provides the freedom to redesign your life exactly as you wish, without having to consider the needs or preferences of others. 8. You long for minimalism and simplicity. As the years passed, I began to feel like I was suffocating amidst so many things. The house was full of objects accumulated over decades, furniture, decorations, clothes I no longer wore, souvenirs from trips. Every corner seemed to scream for attention and maintenance. That's when I discovered the concept of minimalism. The idea of living with less, of keeping only what really matters, fascinated me. I started donating and discarding items that no longer brought me joy or utility. The process was liberating. If you feel overwhelmed by your possessions and yearn for a simpler life with fewer things to manage and maintain, living alone can be a perfect opportunity to embrace minimalism. You'll have the freedom to create a space that reflects exactly what you value without having to negotiate with others about what to keep or discard. You want to make decisions without compromises. Throughout life, I always had to negotiate decisions, with my parents when I was young, with my wife when I got married, with my children when they became adults. There was always someone I needed to reach an agreement with before doing anything. As I aged, I realized I longed for the freedom to make my own decisions. Without having to consult anyone, I wanted to be able to decide what to have for dinner, without having to consider someone else's preferences. I wanted to be able to change the living room decor without having to convince anyone it was a good idea. If you find yourself desiring this freedom of decision, of living according to your own preferences without having to constantly negotiate, this can be a clear sign that you're ready to live alone. It's incredibly liberating to be able to make decisions, big or small, based solely on what you want and need. 10. You're ready for emotional independence. For a long time, I was emotionally dependent on others. I needed my family's approval to feel good about myself. I called my children every day, sometimes several times a day, because I felt lonely or anxious. Over time, I realized that this emotional dependence wasn't healthy for me or for them. I started working on myself, developing strategies to deal with my emotions independently. I learned mindfulness techniques, started keeping a journal, found hobbies that brought me personal satisfaction. If you feel emotionally strong, capable of dealing with your ups and downs without constantly relying on the support of others, this is a strong indicator that you're ready to live alone. Living alone can, in fact, further strengthen this emotional independence, allowing you to trust more in yourself and your own internal resources. 11. You desire to focus on personal growth and self-discovery. After years dedicated to family and work, I realized I had neglected my own personal growth. There were so many things I wanted to learn, so many aspects of myself I wanted to explore. I began to dedicate myself to new activities. I signed up for a painting course, something I always wanted to try. I started practicing meditation. I began to read more about philosophy and psychology. It was as if I was rediscovering myself, getting to know parts of me that had been dormant for so long. If you feel this desire to develop, to explore new interests or resume old passions, living alone can be ideal. It provides the time and space necessary to focus on your personal growth without the distractions and demands that come with living with other people. 12. You want to create your own routine and embrace flexibility. Throughout life, my routine was always dictated by external obligations, work schedules, family needs, social commitments. But with retirement and grown children, I realized I had the opportunity to create a routine that really worked for me. I discovered that I'm a morning person and that I love starting my day with a walk in the park. I realized I prefer to do my household chores in the morning and leave the afternoons free to read or dedicate to my hobbies. I learned to appreciate the flexibility of being able to change my plans according to my mood or energy on the day. If you long for this freedom to structure your days according to your preferences and needs, without having to adapt to other people's schedules or habits, living alone might be the right choice. It allows you to create a routine that truly works for you, promoting your well-being and satisfaction. 13. You have financial independence. Financially, it wasn't always easy. There were times when I had to count every penny, especially when I was raising my kids. But with careful planning, saving, and some smart investments, I managed to build a certain financial stability. Getting to a point where I can comfortably support myself without depending on anyone gave me an amazing sense of freedom and security. I knew I could make decisions based on what was best for me, not on what was financially necessary. If you find yourself in a stable financial position, able to cover your own expenses without depending on others, this is a strong indicator that you're ready to live alone. Financial independence allows you to make decisions about your housing and lifestyle based on your personal preferences, not on economic necessities. 14. You deeply value your privacy. As the years went by, I began to value my privacy more and more. Not that I didn't like being with people, but I realized I needed moments just for myself. Without having to worry about others' expectations or judgments, I longed for a space where I could be totally myself, where I could sing in the shower without worrying about bothering anyone, where I could be silent for hours without anyone asking if everything was okay, where I could leave the mess from my painting on the living room table without having to clean up immediately. If you feel this growing need for a personal space where you can be authentic without external interference, living alone might be the ideal solution. It provides an environment where your privacy is respected and where you can be truly yourself without compromises. 15. You're comfortable with technology and home management. I confess that at first I was a little scared of the idea of dealing with all the household and technological tasks alone. How would I fix something if it broke? What if I couldn't set up the Wi-Fi? But over time, I realized I was more capable than I imagined. I learned to use YouTube to find tutorials on small home repairs. I discovered apps that helped me manage bills and grocery shopping. I even ventured into using virtual assistants to remind me to take my medicines and schedule medical appointments. If you feel comfortable dealing with basic technology and confident in your ability to manage a home, this is a good sign that you're ready to live alone. You don't need to be an expert in everything. The important thing is to have the willingness to learn and the confidence to try. 16. You prefer to socialize outside the home. I've always been a sociable person, but over time, I noticed a change in how I like to interact with people. While before I loved having friends and family over, I began to prefer meeting them in cafes, parks, or restaurants. I discovered that I liked the energy of being in public places, of seeing other people around. But I also loved the feeling of returning to a quiet house after these encounters. It was like having the best of both worlds. Social interaction when I wanted it, and peace and quiet when I needed to recharge my energies. If you identify with this preference, if you like to socialize but also appreciate returning to a peaceful home, living alone might be ideal. It allows you to maintain an active social life while ensuring a personal space to relax and recover. 17. You're in good health and able to take care of yourself. Thank God I've always had relatively good health. Of course, with age came some aches and pains, a knee that complains now and then, blood pressure that needs to be monitored. But overall, I feel capable of taking care of myself. I make a point of staying active. I walk every day, do light exercises regularly, and eat well. I'm also disciplined with my medications and medical appointments. This autonomy regarding my health gives me confidence to consider living alone. If you're in good health and feel capable of managing your medical and wellness needs independently, this is a strong indicator that you might be ready to live alone. Remember, living alone doesn't mean not having help when necessary. It's about having the ability to recognize when you need assistance and seek it on your own. 18. You're open and adaptable to changes. Life taught me that the only constant is change. When I was younger, I resisted alterations in my routine or environment, but over time, I learned not only to accept changes, but to embrace them as opportunities for growth. When I first thought about living alone, I was a bit apprehensive. It would be a big change, but I also felt excited about the prospect of a new adventure, of learning new things, of adapting to a new lifestyle. If you feel comfortable with the idea of change, if the prospect of new challenges excites you more than it scares you, this is a good sign that you're ready for the transition to living alone. This openness to change will be valuable in navigating the adjustments that come with living independently. 19. You seek creative freedom and personal expression. Over the years, I developed a taste for interior decoration. I loved rearranging furniture, choosing new colors for the walls, selecting artwork to hang, but I always had to negotiate these choices with whoever I was living with. The idea of having a space entirely my own, where I could express my creativity freely, began to attract me more and more. I imagined a house that completely reflected my personality, my tastes, my life experiences. If you yearn for this creative freedom, for a space that is an authentic expression of who you are, living alone might be the answer. It allows you to create an environment that nurtures your soul and reflects your individuality without having to make concessions to the tastes or needs of other people. 20. You want to reduce expenses and simplify finances. Over time, I realized that many of my expenses were the result of commitments or habits that didn't necessarily reflect my own needs or desires. I was spending on things that didn't bring me real satisfaction, just because it was what was expected, or what I had always done. The idea of having total control over my finances, of being able to adjust my lifestyle to reflect my true priorities, became increasingly attractive. I realized that living alone would allow me to cut unnecessary expenses and direct my resources to what really mattered to me. If you long for simpler and more direct financial management, if you want to have more control over how you spend your money, living alone can be an excellent option. It allows you to adapt your budget to your specific needs without having to consider the spending habits or expectations of other people. 21. You have a social support network outside the home. Even while considering living alone, I always highly valued my social connections. I have a group of friends I play dominoes with. Every week, I participate in a monthly book club, and I keep regular contact with my children and grandchildren by phone and video calls. This support network gives me confidence to consider living alone. I know I have people I can count on if I need help or company, but I also appreciate the independence of having my own space. If you have close friends, family, or social groups that are a regular part of your life, this is an excellent indicator that you might be ready to live alone. This support network ensures that you can enjoy your independence without feeling isolated or lonely. Conclusion. Living alone in your golden years isn't for everyone, and it's perfectly okay if you prefer to continue living with family or friends. The important thing is to recognize what works best for you at this stage of life If you identified with several of the signs mentioned above, you might be ready to take this step towards independence. Remember, living alone doesn't mean being alone. It's about creating a space that is truly yours, where you can live according to your own terms, while maintaining meaningful connections with the people you love. The decision to live alone is personal and should be made after careful reflection and, if possible, discussion with trusted people. If you decide to follow this path, know that many before you have found joy, peace, and a renewed sense of purpose in embracing this new phase of life. After all, the golden years can be a time of rediscovery, personal growth, and new adventures. Living alone might just be the beginning of an exciting and rewarding chapter in your life. So, if you feel you're ready, why not give this new journey a chance?